I would like to thank everyone that participate in this webinar. It's our pleasure to invite and accept the invitation Mr. Adam Colon, that he's the Director of Operations of the Final Mile Division in the Illinois and Wisconsin region. He has held a few different roles with the company as a local fleet manager in the Intermodal Division, an account manager for the Dedicated Services Division, and a regional safety manager in the Final Mile Division. In 2020, he earned his MBA from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and he's also a board member at the Center of Supply Chain Management Logistics at the University of Illinois at Chicago. I would like to thank Adam that he accepted this invitation in his busy schedule. I was really fascinated from his talks before in the various conferences, especially the TRB. And this webinar is offered with the IT FAQ Student Chapter. I would like to thank the president of FAQ Student Chapter. And after that, Adam, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Mr. Colon, sorry to interrupt. We are seeing your presentation mode screen. You can change it to the full screen. Yes, now you're good. Thank you.
Unmute. There it is. Couldn't find the unmute button. All right, I'll put this in the full-blown presentation mode. Let me know if you see it.
Yes, we can.
Cool. All right, good deal. All right, thanks everyone for the invite, and I appreciate the intro. But today I'm going to be talking about final mile market dynamics, and final mile, also referred to as the last mile of shipping. And first, I'd like to thank the Freight Mobility Research Institute for the invitation and for giving me the opportunity to talk at this event. I've been part of these in the past. I love sharing any knowledge that I can with the group, and I love watching these videos as well, and presentations from others in the field, and even going through YouTube and rewatching some presentations from the past as well. A lot of insight you can get from this. All right, a little bit about myself. I had a great intro, and I think it stole all the thunder I was about to say about myself. A pretty humble guy, so I always find a hard time talking about me, but just operations of director of operations for JB Hunt Transportation Services, and like we talked about, I went to University of Illinois at Chicago for my undergrad, University of Illinois at Champaign for my MBA, and it started at UIC after coming back from the Army Reserves and being deployed to Operation Iraqi Freedom from 2009 and 2010. And then started at JB Hunt in 2012 upon graduation, and been there ever since. I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of great people, some of them on this call too, and continue to work with a lot of great people at JB Hunt and in the transportation field in general. And currently, I hold a role as the Director of Operations for our Final Mile Division for the Illinois and Wisconsin market. All right. Enough about me. So a few things I want to touch on today. I just want to go over a basic understanding of final mile, just to make sure, or last mile, just to make sure we're all on the same page when I talk throughout the agenda here of demand increase and supply challenges. But after I feel good about establishing at least a base understanding on the last mile side of the business, I do want to shed some light on some demand increases we've seen in the market. And then some supply challenges that we're also seeing in the industry currently. So what is final mile? So for the sake of the conversation, I want to keep this discussion focused to delivering of big and bulky product, and big and bulky home deliveries. So everything from your outdoor, indoor furniture, appliances, electronics, workout equipment, basically anything that's bulky, very difficult to deliver, outside the realm of what you typically see with FedEx or UPS would be something that we typically do, and what I'm considering to be part of this discussion would be the last mile piece of it. And these deliveries typically take a little bit extra effort, require some more specialized equipment, a lot of skill to perform the labor. And companies that require these types of deliveries will typically go with 3 options to make these deliveries. I'm going to review the top 3 that we've seen, or I've seen kind of more in the market in the last mile side of the business. And just to, once again, just kind of rehash the basic understanding of the home delivery networks. All right, so looking at our top 3 options that will a typical client or customer will go with are going to be your company-owned, your carrier-owned, and independent contractor-owned model. And with that, some companies mix and match. Some just go with one model. Some mix with a bunch of them, or some use different ones for different markets, depending on the availability of drivers and contractors in different models or different locations. So starting with the first one of the company-owned model. So this model is where a company will invest heavily in creating a private fleet for their home delivery network. The requirements for this will involve investing heavily in equipment like trucks, routing software, delivery equipment if specialized deliveries are required, and invest equally as heavy in their own transportation department, which would require dispatchers, routers, operations managers, etc., to get their private fleets running. It can pull resources into a delivery network that can otherwise be allocated to the core strength of companies. A reason that companies would go with this route is normally to keep control over the entire last mile experience. The negatives with this would be a heavy investment onto a company to go this route. And it could hinder growth as companies have to allocate their resources. And by resources here, I mean, you're putting manpower and a lot of money and capital investment into this to start your own private fleet. So the carrier-owned model, and carrier-owned model is more where a company will partner with a carrier. And for this instance, I'll use something I'm comfortable with, JB Hunt. And for us, we call this an asset model. So the carrier can purchase the assets, hire their own company employees, and make growth easier to achieve. Companies will ultimately have their private fleet, but push the initial investment cost to the carrier. And then, we can work out the rates from there. The carrier will come with the expertise already of doing deliveries and finding ways to make it more efficient. The company can then focus on the core strength of their business and let the carrier worry about the deliveries. The reason a company would go with a carrier model would be that they would have a strong control over the teams and potentially looking at expanding their delivery network through the continental U.S., where a carrier that's already got an established network and the continental U.S. can easily just ramp up and control their deliveries from there. A potential drawback for the company to go this route would be that it would cost more than the independent contractor model to create a carrier fleet. But however, it would mitigate a lot of the shortage of third-party teams if the work is in more of the remote markets. And then the final option here I'd like to touch base on today would be a DNA option, and that's considered a dedicated non-asset model. But companies that use a DNA or dedicated non-asset model, a company would either hire third-party contractors to work at their facilities or hire a carrier to manage the third-party contractors to do their home deliveries. Relatively a low investment for companies in regards to deliveries, no company-owned assets, and no company employees. So each third-party carrier-owned tractor is independently owned at each, and each one is pretty much its own small business. Companies are required to build those relationships with each carrier, build strong partnerships in order to ensure both parties are winning on making deliveries. This approach can help keep costs down for companies as they do not need to invest in any equipment and just focus on their core strength. A negative would be that companies are more at the mercy of the contractor base in the market, and if competition is nearby, this could potentially drive up prices to find contractors to work at their facilities. All right, so those are the three top options that we typically see with the last mile delivery networks. And each company can kind of pick as to relatively what they want to go with on their whatever their mission statement is, or what product they're delivering, and how they see fit with these models. All right, next slide. So one thing I wanted to touch base on was the demand in the market currently. So in regards to home deliveries, we've seen a major demand. Initially on the final mile side of the business, we were hit fairly hard by COVID. However, it did not take long for it to come back healthier and stronger than ever with the recovery. And actually, a lot of deliveries exceeded pre-COVID levels. I know when COVID first hit, people were talking about a V-shaped recovery. Well, this one maybe looked like a V shape where the other side of the V continued to grow past the former line. And what consumers ended up spending more time in their homes working, either from working from home or just not traveling due to restrictions. An effect was that consumers were wanting to remodel homes, upgrade appliances and furniture, replace furniture, appliances due to more usage at home. One reason we did hear a lot of as well, purchase workout equipment due to either gyms being closed and or just the comfort level of not wanting to go into a gym due to safety concerns. Purchasing new homes, and many other causes that created more of a boom in the final mile side of the business. And really, deliveries went from being contactless during COVID. Companies were very quick to adapt, and it happened rapid fire, but they adapted to no signature required on the shipping side. Shipping and delivering outside of your home, or simply just doing outside threshold deliveries. And then it almost felt like overnight, we have to immediately readapt and bring back the full assembly and full installs of deliveries as an option for consumers, since the preference changed. Once consumers felt more confident with teams along coming inside of their homes, and specifically more of the introduction of personal protective equipment being utilized for deliveries. And just a few fun facts I was able to research, maybe to help make my point on demand spiking. But according to the National Association of Home Builders, 90% of home builders reported having issues sourcing appliances. This demand was not limited to just home builds, but also attributed to existing home sales that have increased during this time. At home workout equipment, I'm sure everyone has heard of businesses struggling to keep up with demand in some instances, and consumers waiting for months to get purchase equipment. And on the furniture side, there has also been a major demand and surge of consumers that has created a backlog for many facilities, and ultimately, I think, tested the patience of many consumers on waiting for product to arrive from the manufacturer or be built if the furniture was a custom set. All right. And with the demand for consumer expectations, I would say also grew. I think we're entering some uncharted territory as we're entering of companies meeting the demand for consumers. On the home delivery side, we're continuing to see just a rise in volume coming through the network. And really demand has never been stronger or greater than it is now for most of the companies we partner with. And we're definitely not seeing a slowdown. We're thinking for at least the remainder of the year is what most forecasts are looking like. And a lot of this is due to shipment delays from ports overseas, and creating new ways and also by creating new ways for consumers to shop for product. Some consumers are rather focused on the estimated time of delivery than the price of the product. I think this is a new phenomenon that's starting to happen in the market, where consumers are looking at the value of time into their purchases. And I put out here just a humor touch, but the equation for price elasticity, and just thinking that there might have to be, very theoretical, but there might have to be a value of time added to this. And just for an example of what I'm talking about, if you go to electronics store A and the electronics store A has a product $20 cheaper, but the ETA they're giving you is maybe 2 weeks to a month, or you go to electronics store B and the product is $20 more expensive, but they're giving you an ETA of a week or less. We think consumers might be factoring the time as a deciding factor and willing to sacrifice some savings to get their deliveries that much sooner. And once again, this idea is more theoretical. I do hear it more and more as some companies feel it might be occurring in the market. I would even say, as an example for myself, I bought a washer and dryer. One of them had an ETA about a month. One of them had an ETA about 2 weeks. The month out was cheaper. I still went with the 2 weeks one and kind of practiced my own theory as I lived it here. But it's something that could, for research purposes, potentially be researched more to see if there's that value of time and finding that perfect number of what consumers are looking for, and maybe potentially help clients to understand it's not just the price anymore, and if it's more if we have it in stock and how quickly we can get it to the consumer. That's going to be factored into the purchasing habits moving forward. And we're seeing a lot more when a company has product in stock. More customers are actually opting in for same-day deliveries right now. Next-day deliveries were quick and came with many challenges, but now we're entering a world of competition where same-day deliveries continue to rise, but are limited to product in stock. So companies are now needing to find ways to manage the communication of shipping delays, find ways to maintain consumers from leaving while waiting for the product, and educate consumers on why their product is delayed. I would say this might have been a small part of the business in the past, but now requires a lot more attention as sales can be lost if companies can't adapt quickly. This is not an easy feat. Some products might take as long as 6 months to a year to arrive when purchased. And consumers' elasticity is being tested on how long they're willing to wait. And once again, on the research side, I think this would be a good topic to find that acceptable tolerance level for consumers on the shipping delays. But this has created new opportunities for companies. I would call it finding ways to manage consumers' expectations when it comes to their home deliveries. All right. With the last mile delivery, I have to talk about the demand for customer satisfaction. That's a huge piece of our business, and a big piece of if a consumer is going to be a repeat shopper, if they're even going to go to the store to begin with, or if they're going to order something online or not, by the satisfaction that they read from prior customers in the past. Teams are being scrutinized, by each company on their customer service level. Online sales have been on the rise for some time and accelerated with COVID, shifting consumers to only shop online and be willing to purchase big and bulky items online without actually seeing them in person. With more companies having sales through online platforms, it's causing teams to potentially be the first person and the last person seen by consumers. Each company has developed its methodology of tracking consumers' reviews and ranking the delivery teams, including both quantitative and qualitative ways to consume customer surveys. This is extremely important as it could determine if consumers will be repeat shoppers. I just toss this in as it is a very important part in the final mile world when it comes to home deliveries. Consumers' perspective might already be skewed with having a long wait times, which the teams might ever be walking into an escalated situation. The delivery teams are being asked to de-escalate these situations upon arrival and provide that high level of customer service at each home. The ranking also determines opportunities for coaching teams and making recommendations for teams to adapt to the current climate. The service portion comes hand in hand with home deliveries. Companies, carriers, and contractors, as they need to protect their reputation in the market when it comes to home deliveries. They are meeting or exceeding customer expectations. Another aspect of customer satisfaction has been the introduction of upselling during the delivery. Think about if you buy an oven and didn't pay for installation, Well, when the delivery team arrives, then they can sell you the service to ensure all aspects of the installation are complete. The same goes for furniture. The customer requires a hallway of old furniture, relocation, different floors. The customer can pay at point of delivery. This is a newer concept that some companies are experimenting with to ultimately ensure the customer is satisfied at point of delivery. But goes to the point of demand. The demand is high for teams that can bring this type of customer service level to their work. All right, and I want to talk about some supply challenges with the delivery teams. So now that I've set the stage with the demand for the final mile delivery, I want to touch base on also the challenges that we're seeing. When items have been arriving from the ports, it has been taking longer to even get to the ports. And by the time it gets shipped to the stores, we're typically seeing that consumers want that product as soon as possible. Typically, when they arrive, consumers are made aware of when the product arrives. Then they schedule their deliveries. And typically, they're just going to pick the time slot that's going to be the quickest to get the product tomorrow if they could. A lot of this is from the months waiting for some product to arrive, but it has created a major demand for our skilled delivery teams, equipment for deliveries, and providers to meet this demand. Although there was an economy that grew from work-at-home roles, home delivery teams were not able to do the same. The teams had to go and work during the pandemic as essential workers and continue to make deliveries. If you've watched the news or read business articles, you've probably heard of the labor shortages, and hopefully it's to no one's surprise that the delivery teams are experiencing the same shortage for labor. So to be clear, demand is high for labor, while the supply for these positions has recently been extremely low. To focus on labor, there's an overall shortage in the market of workers that want to do this type of work. And in general, maybe some other presentations I've seen, I've heard of the driver shortage and people not necessarily tending to want to be truck drivers or get behind the wheel as a career path. So we were already struggling to meet that. And now when you throw in the skilled labor part, it's making it now it's more difficult. It only requires drivers to adhere to DOT laws, but they also need to learn the skill of hooking up appliances, building furniture, setting up home gyms, and bringing in that high level of customer service. On the skill side, the delivery teams are also required to ultimately be an extension of the companies they're shipping for and provide that service that they're expecting. And for some companies, just to reiterate, the delivery team is most likely the only person that the consumer is going to see with the product being delivered, especially if it's ordered online, or if it's primarily online or catalog shopping. Another cost that we're seeing with this is many delivery teams, or to recruit a lot of these delivery teams, a lot of companies are having to place ads, and then you got to interview the candidates, and then you got to perform the training so you can get them up to speed on the work required. The barriers to entry have also increased for some of our smaller carriers in the market. Insurance cost continues to rise for smaller partners, which makes it much more difficult for new teams to enter the market. Also, more and more carriers are establishing more stringent rules for workers and require partners to adhere to drug testing and background checks. For companies like J.B. Hunt, we have one of the most strictest screening programs in the country, which include drug tests, background checks, and follow-up checks with their employment, and that only 25% of applicants actually make it through the process. To focus on another pain point for supply, tractors have also been in short supply for the teams. In a different market, we've seen many issues of delivery teams not finding rentals or not being able to find tractors to purchase. The immediate demand for rentals caught some rental companies by surprise in many markets and has caused companies to increase their rental rates. On the purchasing side of tractors, we have seen a delay in new tractor construction due to the chip shortage, and this has actually caused some of the bigger companies to hold on to their equipment a lot longer than normal, since new equipment is not entering the market quick enough. And that was actually a stream of equipment that would run into the market, and contractors would come and purchase it from some of the bigger corporate companies that would sell their equipment or have the lease option. But since they're holding on to it, they're causing a little bit more of a shortage in the demand. So supply meets demand. Ultimately, we are seeing a cost increase for delivery teams. Labor costs are increasing to find vetted individuals with the skill to perform the job of doing installs, deliveries, and provide that customer service that companies are looking for. The teams doing deliveries are as important as anybody when it comes to the customer experience, and can have a positive or negative effect for consumers shopping at companies depending on the experience. The cost of equipment is also rising. Rentals being low in the market to the demand for straight trucks needed. We're seeing the cost increase for teams in this category. Along the side of rentals and tractors, we're also seeing fuel costs rise, which I'm sure most of you have seen that drive. Safety PPE, which personal protective equipment, is also a new cost and has a new norm of basic equipment for delivery teams. And that goes more in line of hand sanitizer, mask, sanitizing sprays that each team is now needed to be equipped with for the market. And currently, in the market conditions with home delivery still being high and the supply being low, this is causing the market to find its equilibrium on rates for deliveries, causing some increases in cost for companies and carriers. You're already seeing companies share the cost of product with consumers to mitigate their expenses, unrelated to transportation, but you've seen how Chipotle has increased their cost of food due to labor cost. Another recent article I read and saw on the news as well was Whirlpool increasing their prices due to commodity cost increasing. I think the reaction of increasing costs and sharing with consumers will most likely be a trend as shipping related costs continue to rise. All right, final mile and beyond. I think companies will continue to adapt to the market conditions pertaining to supply and demand of deliveries. Companies will have to continue to find tangible and intangible ways to improve. On the tangible side, possibly mix and matching from the three different options, from the three different delivery options I presented earlier on how they conduct their home deliveries. Investing in technology that is available for companies on making their shipping more efficient. Possibly commingling of product or more warehouse facilities to expedite shipping upon arrival. On the intangible side, companies need to find ways to over-communicate with consumers on the challenges they're seeing with delays and make sure that they are transparent. In the current marketing conditions, companies need to find ways to make home deliveries easier for delivery teams. The companies that win in this market are the ones that can attract teams that want to work for them. This can be easily done by having partnership meetings, finding ways to make their days lighter on volume, optimizing routing, and making the environment inviting to hold on to great teams. To quote JB Hunt, COO, great partners attract great partners. This is more important now than ever to recruit and hold on to teams in this challenging environment. Another challenge you might see is more companies starting to possibly deviate from their stringent policies and relaxing them in order to recruit more folks. In recent times, you've seen how Amazon is no longer drug testing for marijuana. This might become a new phenomenon as labor stays tight in most markets and companies continue to explore ways of bringing in talent to their companies. However, with drivers, there's definitely limitations on how relaxed you can get with your rules, as companies still need to adhere to DOT laws. But in this new norm, consumers will also be tested on the tolerance level of waiting for product to arrive and be shipped in their homes. The market will test the patience of consumers waiting for their product to arrive and affect how consumers shop if they value time more than the savings and when they can get their on the product. Overall, we will never stop shipping and making home deliveries. The market is just adapting every day to the market dynamics, But rest assured, no one will go without getting their product in a challenging environment. And this concludes my presentation, and I'm open for questions. Stop sharing. Hopefully I wasn't muted the whole time.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Cullen, for this very interesting presentation. Now, if you have any questions, you can either unmute yourself or you can type your questions in the chat and I will address them. So it looks like we have 2 questions in the chat, on the chat. So from Frank, great presentation, Adam. Not to jump on conclusions, however, are there any OD data available out there on the last mile from any source?
Are there any, and if you mind, Frank, you can clarify OD, that acronym?
I believe he's talking about origin destination data.
Yes, he's talking about origin destination.
Oh, okay. Are there any available out there last mile from any source? Typically, origin destination data, sure. You have to find we have that for our clients. We typically we'll shield a lot of the information because you're actually talking about consumers' homes with the addresses, so you're going to be cautious of that. If you're requiring it for research side and maybe building a heat map for home deliveries and trying to find a different market, there's definitely data out there, but you would have to partner up typically with a client or a company that'd be willing to share some of that, as they would have to scrub some of that data to provide for you. I'm not familiar if there's any just kind of a practical way of just pulling that data other than partnering up with someone and actually understanding where they're doing the deliveries, and then what type of data you're needing from client side. Is it appliances data you're needing, furniture data you're needing, or if it's just all the above and you're just looking for a commingle side of just the home delivery base and trying to build a heat map of where that data is coming from. But if you have any questions, you can hit me up on LinkedIn and we can touch base, Frank. If you want to get a little more specific with origin and destination, and maybe I can help you out that way to help any of your research goals.
We have another question from Noel. Has J.B. Hunt considered when it expects transportation costs and supply chain issues to respectively come down or recede?
So just talking in general, I think for the market, it's tough for anyone to expect when it's going to stop. I'd say what we're hearing from a lot of clients is going to be that at least for the remainder of this year, and some are starting to get a little aggressive and maybe forecasting first quarter next year, but at least for the remainder of this year, we're projecting things to stay very busy.
We have another question from Ben. What last mile trend or issue most keeps you up at night?
Day-to-day operations keeps me up at night. I would say on the trend side, there's just been kind of summing up the presentation. We've seen a lot of people getting out of the home delivery side. It has caused a lot of rates or prices to go up. So we're trying to continuously find ways to adapt, recruit, find people that want to do this type of work, that want to go inside customers' homes, that want to do the customer service side. The price is going up, so you're starting to see more people maybe thinking about a little bit more, and the market's starting to somewhat find more its equilibrium. I don't think we're there yet, but we are surely getting there, and there's more companies starting to explore kind of the 3 options that I presented, where they're mix and matching. So if you got a remote market where you can't find any teams, any contractors, then you might just want to hire your own people, want to buy your own truck, and a company can just adapt that way versus trying to be at the mercy of the market. But I would say major trend we're seeing is just that the costs continue to rise. Hard to recruit currently for, I'd say, most markets in final mile, and just not too many people wanting to stay in this business and grow in this business, which you can, and ultimately start your own business and start running your own trucks and be successful at it. But I'd say that just the shortage of labor has been difficult.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. I don't see other questions in the chat. Oh, we have another question from Monica. Is the delivery industry ready to provide high-level data to research and government?
The industry as a whole, that might be a tough question. I'd say for us we'd have to go through a lot of vetting to find that, to be able to provide that data as a whole. I don't feel like there's been a strong urge or demand for people to want to have this data other than these types of meetings that we're in now. But if anything changes with that, I think there could be more of a research and government type of scene where we're relinquishing more data to create those heat maps. But yeah, right now, I don't know if there's much of an appetite for anyone to push the industry to be sharing everything and to be kind of exploring. And some of that is probably because some clients are probably trying to be cautious, so no one knows necessarily where the stuff's going. But yeah, I'm not sure on the appetite there for the delivery industry to want to necessarily provide all that data. However, I think in the future there could be an avenue that you want to provide that data for everyone. Go.
Do we have any other questions? You can either type them in the chat or you can unmute yourself. And I don't see other questions in the chat.
Also, if they like, they can ask the question directly to Adam, not the chat. Any other question for Adam?
Well, this was awesome. I appreciate it, everyone. Great questions.
Yeah, very good questions. Thank you. Adam, I would like, on behalf of FMRI, I would like to thank you for your time. Thank you for your time for today's webinar. We are looking forward to work together in the future. But in your participation, we really appreciate it. Hopefully, we will see you down to Boca Raton in the future events.